Welcome to another Global Crypto Picks media stream. Here in our inaugural podcast, we're going to be covering the basics of cryptocurrency and its broader implications.
In this podcast, we're just going to start off with what is blockchain and what is cryptocurrency and why it's important. So Logan, what do you think of cryptocurrency technology? It was created in 2009 from some anonymous. No one really knows who it is, like the group of people, and
Definitely. Well, with all the theories abound for the creators of Bitcoin, I think, well, right now we don't know. And even if we never find out who it is, generally we can say they started off, well, a financial revolution and something that has much broader implications societally as well. So, in terms of its broader implications, what do you think are the big benefits of blockchain and cryptocurrency in general versus, let's say, fiat currency?
I think cryptocurrency will tackle one of the biggest problems that we have in our society, and it's the control of the money supply. So if you give people too much control over the money supply, you'll eventually get corruption within that system, especially if you have no oversight. Like, do people really know how central banks work, or how the IMF works, or the that's where it is. Yeah, Bank of International Settlements. So kind of how like a very broad structure of how like our banking system works. The Bank of International Settlements, that's where the decisions get made, and then from there it branches out all to all um, the other central banks that are in every country in the world pretty much, except in there's no central bank in Iran, Syria, and North Korea so far.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that does make sense. Doesn't seem like there's much forms of governance in some of those countries. That
Yeah, for sure. I guess some of them are in civil war,
Well,
but
definitely, I completely agree with you on that. That point being, as soon as you give someone ultimate control over the monetary supply, they start to abuse that. And we've seen that all throughout history, even going back as far as the first minting of coins, where they were stamping images of usually kings or leaders of places on it to stop people from melting the coins down and adding in other alloys to it to create more. I mean, if you have 10 gold coins and you start to put bronze into it, you can 10 times your money. And this seems like the newest technological advancement that is trying to solve an age-old question.
yeah, that's a pretty good point. And now, now fast forwarding, how do you think the monetary supply is crap now? Like,
Well, I think there's a number of ways. First of all, there's a complete lack of transparency when it comes to central banks. And I mean, the farce extends even farther than that. The US central bank, for instance, is a private entity. So it's basically printing money for the US to then buy from it at a set interest rate. Why are you having to buy the money that your country uses as its medium of exchange? That seems pretty crazy to me.
yeah,
But also the general lack of knowledge, like you were touching on before, that the average person or even people in the financial industry, the lack of knowledge that they have about central banks and well, what their broad influence is. Can they actually affect interest rates and monetary supply globally? Uh, but also, if they, yeah, if they're carrying out their job to the best of their abilities, and I think people are rightly skeptical of this. If you look at Zimbabwe and their crazy amounts of interest or their crazy rates of inflation where they're having to lop zeros off their currency, it just doesn't seem like the system is very streamlined, and
hmm
it's kind of open to corruption too, and probably created in that way for that reason, at least to some extent.
For sure. So I guess kind of just broadly speaking is that how our financial and our currency supply works. It a lot of people. I just saw a survey where like, it's about 80% of the people, millennials, don't trust banks.
Well, I would say that the 2008 crisis definitely influenced the thinking, especially of the younger generations. But I would say it only exacerbated a trend that's been ongoing for some time now, which is basically a lack of faith in the banking and financial industry. If
Mm-hmm.
you look at all of these corruption schemes that the banks, especially international banks, have been embroiled in, whether it's HSBC laundering Mexican cartel money or collusion between banks in rigging the foreign exchange rates. There's a number of ways that they have, well, continued historically shady business practices. So I think people are skeptical of the banking industry with good reason.
Mm-hmm. And how do you think cryptocurrency will solve this problem? Because how cryptocurrency works is that all it is it's a distributed global ledger system. So whenever there's a transaction that occurs in within any kind of cryptocurrency, whether it's Bitcoin, Ethereum, that transaction is then propagated onto every other computer that's running nodes for that network and gets recorded onto their computers. So how that's kind of revolutionary is that since the transaction is recorded on computers all over the world, it's very hard for a hacker to then attack all those computers at the same time and to change to change the ledger or to change the transaction that occurred.
Yeah. Well, definitely that transparency is, I'd say, one of, if not the biggest thing that cryptocurrency is bringing to the table, at least in terms of currency wise, in terms of the monetary supply and regulation. I
Mm-hmm.
would say that that is a huge step forward. The transparency in the banking system, well, basically, it's opaque for a reason, and it's a lot easier to perpetrate fuckery, as I'd like to call it, when people don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
So having everything visible on a public ledger, that's game changing.
For sure. And so right, like when people hear about cryptocurrency, they just think of like another crypto what? They're kind of like cryptocurrency, like how a lot of people think it's kind of a joke, right? When you tell them, "Oh, I'm into Bitcoin," they kind of laugh at you a little bit, or they're really skeptical about it. And when you first start getting into this cryptocurrency, it seems very vague, but once you learn more and more about it, you can see uh, bigger, a bigger life changing transition that might occur within this industry. And so maybe we should talk about like there is this cryptocurrency where it just represents another form of currency, but there's a whole another world of cryptocurrency that we haven't even really
Mm.
touched on. And um, what else?
Definitely.
So yeah, so like what other applications is cryptocurrency trying to tackle? Because I know there's one huge industry that's that just blew up this market. Because in 2017, the market was only at the total market cap, which is this the total value of cryptocurrencies was only at 18 billion, and then by the end of 2017, so just in 1 year, it went to 813 billion. So that
Find me another market that has that kind of growth.
yeah, so
Always.
it's crazy. Yeah, so why are people so excited about this market? Because there's a brand new market called the ICO market, which is initial coin offering, and all that is if an entrepreneur wants to start a business, they can have a token that represents equity in their business and create instant liquidity for speculators uh,
Yeah.
to trade that business idea. So why do you think that is
Basically,
so big?
it's basically the stock market IPO, but in its own mutation in the cryptocurrency segment, I guess.
Yeah, kind of like its own cryptocurrency world. And so, like, are these ICOs kind of more just kind of like an IPO, or do they have a completely different business models that have never existed before?
Yeah, certainly there are similarities and differences. Before touching on that, I'd like to go back and answer your first question. Um,
Yeah, for
I
sure.
would say I would say the biggest thing causing people to adopt this technology, and one of the reasons for that explosive growth that we saw last year, one of them is the new disruptive technology. So basically, a conservative guess would say 80% of the industries that we currently have all over the world can benefit from some form of cryptocurrency technology, whether it's the distributed ledger, being able to handle payroll for small businesses, supply chain management and logistics being automated to a large extent. I mean, basically the possibilities for what to do with this technology are endless. It's up to the people's imagination as to what they can come up with. So it's definitely a huge leap forward, and the potential for this market is vast.
It's
Is putting it lightly.
it's so exciting because there's so many different applications that cryptocurrencies can apply to, and there's those ones that you just touched on, and then there's also um, decentralized financial systems, government systems, decentralized search engines to compete against Google, decentralized social media platforms to compete against
Hmm.
Facebook and Twitter, for example. And so there's going to be completely different business models that never existed before that are going to be running pretty shortly. So kind of in the cryptocurrency space, we saw that huge boom last year in 2017. However, there's really no projects that are actually kind of working right now. It's all just speculation. Would you agree, or do you?
No, I totally agree with that. I would say
Yeah.
there is little in the way of tangible um, tangible utility for the majority of these projects. I mean, you always hear people talking about Bitcoin as a store of value.
Mm-hmm.
We've had stores of value since people decided that gold or metals or food was worth something. That's a store of value. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, whiskey is a store of value for a farmer who doesn't want to keep his grain in the same form that it is so that it perishes. So we've been creating this for thousands, if not tens of thousands a year. So for me, that's not really something new. But going back to what you were saying, a lot of it right now is theoretical, but so is the internet before it was put into widespread use. And look at the impact that that's had. Cryptocurrency has the ability to do that, but I would say to an even larger extent, the impact that
Mm-hmm.
it can have. I mean, one is the free flow of information, one is kind of modulating that information and making it more usable and automated.
Mm-hmm.
So if we look at the advancements that are happening right now, okay, so let's take Ethereum, the second largest cryptocurrency by market cap right now. What's the biggest use that it's had? The most users, right? CryptoKitties. So basically, that was an app that allowed you to buy, sell, and raise virtual cats on the Ethereum blockchain. So,
Yeah.
I mean, the use of that is negligible. But what was interesting to see in that scenario is people are starting to develop applications, contracts on these that people are willing to use. And how many $1 million did that guy make for something that is basically useless?
I think
Ho-
Yeah, I think
no,
I
go
think
ahead.
one of the crypto kitties sold for over $100,000.
I mean, it's ridiculous, but it's
Yeah.
giving you an idea of where the technology is going. And I think
Hmm.
even though the project itself is basically meaningless, it's emblematic of a wider shift that people are starting to develop usable applications, contracts, technologies on top of these blockchains that are actually functional and the average person is willing to use. Well, let me say the average person that's involved in technology right now, because
Yeah.
the use of, I would say, 99% of these coins right now is in the realm of people that are technologically savvy.
Yeah.
So
I
a
would call
big
them.
thing,
I would just call them nerds. Pretty much the people
yeah,
that are in this, that are in
certainly,
this,
yeah,
and very slowly, I see other people that aren't nerds coming into this space, but it's very few still. So
hmm,
this is still very early. Like it's year one for the crypto, like comparing it to the internet boom. This is still like
yeah,
year one. Like this isn't even
hmm,
like near the end yet. Like there's so much growth that can still happen in this industry. It's just the market cap right now is worth $500 billion, and that's with nothing working so far. It
yeah. Well,
it's
as you were saying, it's complete speculation, and
yeah
a lot of it is people looking to get rich quick. I mean, if anyone is familiar with the South Sea trading company boom that happened in the 15 or 1600s. Basically, that was the launch of the first stock market, and that was all speculation too. So it's not like this is a new phenomena. This has been happening for hundreds of years.
mm-hmm.
People look to get rich quick. It's something that, I don't know, is ingrained in the core of human beings. I think, at least to
yeah
some extent.
yeah
Uh,
especially yeah go ahead.
well, I was going to draw a parallel between the launch of the internet and it's kind of taking hold into mainstream society and cryptocurrency as well. A lot of people probably don't know this, but the first thing that was ever bought or sold on the internet was a bag of weed that was bought from one university and sent to another, with some form of payment being sent back. So if you look at cryptocurrency, what was one of the first uses of Bitcoin? Who were the first people to get into it? Well, if anyone's familiar with the Silk Road, basically an online is Amazon for drugs, weapons, stolen credit cards. So it seems like these things had similar foundings, but their utility expands exponentially outwards from there.
Mm-hmm. For sure, because those are the people that use technology the first, it seems, are the people that are trying, that are breaking the law, and they need technology to try and get around the laws that are in place. So they'll use any technology, um, that's that's any leading technology that will give them some kind of edge. Even
Hmm.
kind of like the first people that wore shoes were probably thieves and stuff, or the you
It's
can
very
yeah
possible.
yeah for sure. This is with any technology, or for
Yeah,
cars, right? They robbed a bank and they need a car to get out of there. So like
Butch
any kind
Cassidy.
of new technology can be used for bad. It just depends on what the overall intention is.
Certainly. And I'm not trying to put a negative implication on either of those. I'm just saying, in the very beginning, you can see parallels between them. And
Mm-hmm.
if cryptocurrency is going to grow to the size and importance of the internet, well, we don't know that right now. But I would say that it's pretty certain, given the direction of the market and the investment being put in it right now, that it's being taken seriously by well, anybody that knows things about financial markets.
Yeah, and
Um,
even I was reading at the Bank of International Settlements. They even have articles on there just describing how cryptocurrencies can ruin their bottom line. So even big, like the biggest, huge bank institutions are now um, coming to grips with the reality that their business model might go extinct pretty soon here.
Well, yeah, and that brings us to another point here. The pushback against this technology is huge. I mean, the amount of businesses that stand to lose from this um, is just gigantic. I mean, banks made something like $40 billion from from overdraft fees just in the U.S. alone last year,
Mm-hmm.
just from overdraft fees. Now, if you look at the entire amount of money that they're making from fees in general, it's trillions of dollars. And that's one of the areas that crypto can have a huge impact is you can send money, receive money, and carry out transactions with negligible fees. I mean, it's close to zero for almost every coin except Bitcoin.
Yeah, especially with there's kind of two different kind of algorithms that are kind of running these things. There's proof of work and proof of stake, and so far the proof of stake computer algorithms that, for example, Ethereum, Waves, Stratus, Neo, their transactions are like at 1 cent. Like how much cheaper can you get than that?
Yeah, exactly. And once you scale that network up, I mean, you can have millions of people having billions of transactions a day for
Mm-hmm.
next to zero fees. And like that doesn't throw a wrench into the works of the banking industry.
Because that's how they make all their money, right? They make all their money
Well,
from
yeah,
transactions of.
a large percentage of it for sure. And it's interesting to see, even though in public you see all of these financial institutions, J.P. Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, um, a lot of them are publicly fighting against crypto or trying to dismiss it as a flash in the pan or something that is inherently unsafe. Um, but you can see behind the scenes they're starting to buy up exchanges, um, have entire departments that are dedicated to researching the uses for cryptocurrency. So they kind of showed their cards on that one.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty easy bluff to call. So I would say if you look behind the scenes and see not what they're saying but what they're doing, you can tell that this is a technology that is definitely not being discounted by them.
For sure. And so there's one limitation with cryptocurrencies right now, and that's scalability. So
Hmm.
that's probably the biggest thing that's slowing it down, and actually probably slowed its growth down by quite a bit. Because with Bitcoin, you can only do about 3 transactions a second. I believe like Ethereum can do a little bit more, like 7 to 12. And there's some new proof of stake algorithms that recently came out that can do up to like 1,000 to or 100 to 1,000 transactions a second. But for these things to really take off, you really need to solve that scalability problem.
Hmm.
Because with blockchain, whenever you use blockchain, you're going to have to propagate that transaction to every other computer around that world. So
Hmm.
just
The
because of
entire
that,
network.
yeah, the entire network. So just because of that, there's always going to be some kind of scalability problem because uh, it's once you get to a certain point, it's very hard to send more transactions per second with that limitation with having to propagate that transaction. So do you think they'll solve that scalability problem that's kind of inherently uh, slowing crypto down?
I
Um,
would say it's almost a certainty. The
yeah.
time frame for that being solved, that's something that I'm unsure of. I mean, there are a number of projects right now whose sole undertaking is solving the scalability project for blockchain,
Mm-hmm.
but as of yet, none of them have solved it. So
No.
I
So
definitely agree that that's a huge holdup.
yeah, for sure. So where do you think we should branch off from here?
Well, we've basically covered the financial aspect of it. A couple of another areas that we haven't mentioned are international remittances and micro loans and micro payments. So the cryptocurrency in general has um, a huge ability to be able to change banking, especially in third world countries where people don't have access to traditional financial infrastructures. So being able to send money, receive money, and carry out transactions, for instance, on a mobile phone, is going to be of huge benefit to people and allow them to take advantage of capital markets that right now have been completely off limits to them.
Yeah, that's an interesting point because now all you need to connect to these new financial instruments is a cell phone now with the internet connection, and that's revolutionary right there. Because how many people in the world don't have bank accounts or don't have access to financial systems.
That's billions of people, and if you can
Yeah.
bring them into the fold, that's looking at it from a capitalist perspective. That's a lot of money to be made there.
For
And
sure.
from a more societal aspect, well, look at the benefit that these people can get. They can get loans to start businesses in their local area, to increase the infrastructure there. I mean, it has pretty huge and global implications.
Yeah, it gives them a brand new tool that they've never had. So I'm
Yeah,
expecting the growth in those developing nations to explode with this technology.
definitely. It
Uh,
offers them an aspect of of I don't know, of value that they've just never had. And
mhm.
access to capital is something that's such a foreign concept, no pun intended, to a lot of people that are in the developing world. So yeah, I completely agree. It's going to have a major impact on the global economy when they are brought into traditional or not even traditional, new financial markets,
For sure.
cryptocurrency being at the forefront.
Yeah, it's cool because now that if anyone in the world that has an idea and enough people think it's a good enough idea, they can get funding for that idea, no problem now.
Yeah, yeah.
So people
It's
aren't held back by where they're born, which country they're born in now, or if they have access to markets. It's
mhm.
it's a more balanced, like a more fair playing ground where anyone can participate in.
Certainly. And I would say one of the big advantages of cryptocurrency too is you can create a crypto to fill any specific niche that you want. So all of these small cottage industries even are going to be able to adopt their own currency for use between the members of that community, and with these exchanges that are popping up, be able to transfer that to other currencies to be able to use that in other areas as well. So
Mm-hmm.
you're able to fulfill these very specific niches and have the currency and its utility developed by the community. And that ensures that it has a good fit for what you're trying to use. And that's one of the knocks on fiat currency right now is, okay, you can use it for anything, but it's not good for a lot of things.
Mm-hmm. And even exchanging and changing Canadian dollars into U.S. dollars costs quite a bit. But when you do transactions between these cryptocurrencies, it's the fees are negligible.
Well, the biggest fees that you encounter right now are exchanging cryptocurrency back into fiat currency. And
Yeah.
there will come a point when that is no longer necessary. You'll be able to buy everything you need in cryptocurrency.
Mm-hmm.
But at this moment in time, that's what the biggest charge is.
Yeah.
So if you can do away with that, then like we were talking about before, you're looking at 1 cent fees for the majority of transactions.
Mm-hmm. So, so we kind of talked about decent amount about cryptocurrency currencies, but now let's kind of go to like another branch of cryptocurrencies, which are more of a lot of people call them block or platform blockchains,
Hmm.
and then the most well known one is Ethereum, and we kind of briefly touched on that one. So, I guess what is like a platform blockchain, and how is that different from Bitcoin? Because a lot of people don't even know the difference between those.
Well, one of the biggest differences between Ethereum and Bitcoin is the Ethereum network is there almost as a, think of it as a roadway to drive vehicles on. So the vehicles being dApps, decentralized apps, and smart contracts. Those are the two big ones.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
although it is a store of value as well, the Ethereum token, basically that is used as gas for the cars to drive along the roadway. So the potential for it, as we were talking about before, is huge. So
Mhm.
being able to write apps that will, especially once AI starts to get involved, which is something that we can touch on later,
For sure.
um, has the ability to run basically autonomous apps. Um,
On
so
on top of Ethereum, right? So you kind of
on
have
top of the Ethereum network, yes.
yeah. So you kind of like maybe another analogy would be Ethereum is kind of like the internet, and then all the decentralized applications are the websites. So
Better.
you don't really know how the internet really works, and that you can kind of drive as Ethereum. And then what people are doing is they're creating decentralized applications that run on top of Ethereum, and those could be anything from decentralized casinos. What other examples are people creating? It's pretty much a non-ending list of what people are creating.
Yeah, well, basically, whatever your creativity can come up with, you can create an application for that and run it on the Ethereum blockchain.
And then each of those applications then have their own token as well, right? So you have your Ethereum token, which is just the main network, and then you create a decentralized application that also has its own token to
Hmm.
run the application, and and that's where it gets value. So if people are using that application, you generally have to use their token in some way, and in using that token, you add value to that decentralized application.
Hmm.
Is that kind of explaining it right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
that's a good explanation. And one thing I would say is, um, a lot of people these days are looking to get in on those sub tokens. For instance, an ICO. There have been a number over the past year that have been launched on the Ethereum platform. So, well, you can obviously make huge profits from that. It's also interesting to see the underlying technology, Ethereum, has skyrocketed as well. And as new applications are created on the platform, some of these cryptocurrencies or projects, Ethereum, Neo, are basically the underlying technology for that, and those are allowing people to build on top of it. So think of it like a
yeah.
sandcastle. You put in the first few scoops, and other people build on top of that to create a finished product.
Hmm.
When this will finish and what the finished product will be is anybody's guess, but it offers a huge amount of opportunity.
For sure, and not only for making opportunities for making money, but opportunities for developers, marketers. It's a whole new industry that people can get into.
Definitely,
And
definitely.
if you're an
As we were
entrepreneur,
saying before, it's limitless.
yeah, if you're an entrepreneur, it's so exciting to live today because if you have an idea, you are able to get funding for it no problem now.
Yeah, well, opening that new capital, that new way of being able to get capital is, yeah, like we were talking about before, is huge. And seeing all the money that's being dumped into the cryptocurrency market right now, I think that's symptomatic of the wider trend that people are looking for new opportunities. And as we touched on in the beginning, people are fed up with the current financial systems.
Yeah, I think they're finally kind of seeing the reality of it, of because it doesn't seem to able to uh, the innovation seems to be kind of stalled out right now with our
Well,
current financial system.
I would go one step farther and say they're actively trying to stifle innovation
Mm-hmm. Explain
to a
that.
large extent.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, if you're, um, let's use another analogy here. If you're Walmart, you don't want Amazon popping up and cutting into your profits. They offer a better service for the same products, much more personalized, and offers a lot more benefit to the users. You can get everything delivered to your front door. You never have to leave your house or your room if you want. So you don't want competitors coming along that offer better services for less price.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I would say in this analogy, it would be cryptocurrency that's taking the place of Amazon. So we have these entrenched financial systems where there's a number of small players making ungodly profits from this system, and they don't want people to come in there and cut into that.
Mm-hmm.
So wouldn't you stifle innovation in those sectors where possible to keep everything
Status
to
quo.
to keep the ability, yeah, to
Yeah,
control it?
yeah, for sure. for sure. And when like that, it doesn't seem like we felt that pushback yet, really. And do you
Well,
think
as we
it's
were talking about before, it's
yeah,
a technology that's in its infancy.
yeah, and
So you see them starting to trying to delegitimize cryptocurrency and Bitcoin in particular. But I think as the market expands and the utility, the usability for the average person grows, that pushback is going to become significant.
yeah, for sure. I think like in the early, even 2016, 2017, they're taking this thing as a joke, pretty much. They weren't
Uh huh.
taking it seriously at all. So when that timetable turns, I wonder if cryptocurrencies will be able to really survive that push that's going to be coming soon. Because I think it will happen eventually, sooner or later, that pushback. And
Definitely.
yeah, and like this for me, I think crypto will be able to easily overcome those obstacles that are going to come in the near future. But it could take a huge hit on the market.
Well, I would agree that the momentum that's being built now can overcome those obstacles, but I wouldn't say that it's going to be easy. I mean, we have trillions of dollars of money being made that's at play, and these people will not go uh, quietly into the sunset.
Mm-hmm. That's true. So another interesting project that's kind of coming online now is there's a lot of AI technology that are using blockchain, and it's pretty interesting. So what's a project that you recently heard for AI AI blockchains?
Well, there's a few. There's the Singularity project, which you can find as AGI token, and also DeepMind. Those are a couple of the big ones. I would say, in terms of real players, the Singularity project looks more feasible, and I say that simply because of the people that are involved with it. They're some of the biggest players in AI and have a proven track record.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that gives a whole amount of credibility to their project.
For sure, and the reason why AGI and blockchain is so interesting is because uh, AI networks will use blockchain in order to uh, grow their network.
Uh huh. Well,
So,
it's like neurons in a brain talking to each other. Your
mhm,
computer will be one of those neurons talking to others amongst the network.
mhm,
And as soon as one computer knows something, the entire network does. And the implications, if I can use one example for big data, I saw something, an article the other day that was saying 60% of businesses are using some form of AI, no matter um, how young or in its infancy it is, how primitive it is,
mhm.
are using that to sort through data to be able to come to conclusions that are helping their business. So obviously the market is there for it.
Yeah.
Um, it's basically we're waiting on the technology to come to fruition. And the implications of that are, well, even bigger than cryptocurrency. I mean, having a functional AI that learns on its own and sends all the information to throughout the network instantaneously, what
Mhm.
can that not be used for? Enter dystopian futures right now.
Yeah, these networks are coming online this year. I know AGI is coming on later on this year. So what like how it works is that each of the nodes. So a node in Bitcoin just runs some redundant computer algorithm to keep it secure and to keep track of all the transactions. But with Singularity network nodes, they actually run AI code, and if that code is run within that network, then that those nodes get paid AGI, and each node will specialize in some kind of function. So you might have one node kind of specializing in facial recognition, another one in another node around the world specializing in voice, another one that's able to uh, speak English, or in another node that can speak French. Another one that's able to uh, uh, turn voice to text speech, for example. And then how AGI network works is that all these nodes then combine together to create a more general AI. And uh, whether or not that has consciousnesses or not is still up to debate. But what you can do with that network is that if you want to create an application, for example, and this app is to whenever you point your camera at a flower and you want to know that flower, uh, you can create an app using this AGI network. So you point your phone at that flower, and then it can tell you the name of it just by looking at it. And whoever made that node to recognize flowers, the code that recognizes flowers, then that developer gets paid money since that code
Well,
is used within that app.
yeah, one of the huge implications is that all of these apps that we have, I mean, these apps already exist for point your camera at food and it will tell you how many calories are in it. I mean, we're starting to get crazy already with this stuff.
Yeah.
The big thing that the artificial intelligence will be able to do is combine all of that knowledge together into one database. And
hmm
yeah, wow, the
And then
implications of that are well, I don't even think we can fathom them.
right, because then you can ask it anything, and then you can come up with some kind of answer for you that you can use.
Yeah, it's the potential for it is insane. It's
Yeah.
absolutely insane.
Yeah.
And what direction that's going to push in, I think needs more study to be understood. Whether or not that can actually be understood, that's up in the air right now. But I would say we need to be putting more emphasis on where this is going. Because
hmm
right now people are creating this technology and there seems to be no consensus as to what it's going to do.
hmm Yeah,
So,
and whether or not it'll have empathy for us
of course, well, it
interesting.
could create a utopia for us or a complete hell on earth,
hmm
depending on what its motivation is, or if it has motivation, if it has to be programmed with that. There's so
hmm
many questions that are unknown right now, and this AGI project, the Singularity, is wow. It's
It's exciting
it's
because
crazy that it's very exciting that they're taking this on. Whether or not they can solve these problems, and the time frame for that is another story. But
yeah.
we're moving at such a rapid pace of change. Who's to say that in 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, that this AI won't be running a significant portion of our lives?
hmm That's true. Yeah, because eventually, if you wanted to create a spaceship, it could just create it for you, and then create the technologies for that
Uh-huh.
spaceship for you,
Yeah.
and then
It's humanly impossible to have everybody collaborating with every other person on the planet at once take um, to take advantage of the combined knowledge, the combined consciousness of everybody on Earth.
hmm
AI harnesses that power. So I mean, if that isn't crazy big in its scope of what it's able to change,
hmm
um, wow, it's like having all of the smartest science. If you want to use that analogy of creating a rocket ship, it's like having every single scientist that knows anything about uh, the creation of rockets or the science behind it, the physics, the chemistry, having all of that in one place, working on one project, and not just one project, but an unlimited number of projects at the same time.
hmm
So, artificial intelligence and in combination with quantum computers, which it seems like we're making large strides forward on, yeah, it's world changing technology there.
and it's happening within our lifetime.
Yeah,
Like it's gonna
we're on
be
the cusp.
like it's just the very beginning of whatever this future is gonna
Hmm.
bring us. And I'm happy because I'll at least be alive hopefully for another 30, 60 years. We'll see what happens, but
Yeah.
but yeah, we'll see what happens.
Well, and speaking of AI, the advancements that we can make in healthcare, I mean, it's ridiculous.
Hmm.
It's like having people work on healthcare technologies, new drugs, ways of uh, of doing surgery, all of these things. It's like having 1,000 years of progress of all of humanity working on that, done in a matter of seconds.
Hmm. And what's also crazy is that Singularity Net will have robots that are connected to that network. So whenever one robot learns something about the world, it'll teach all the other robots what it learned at the same time,
Yeah, so
which is
it's
crazy.
kind of scary when you think about it. But I
Yeah,
mean, I think
yeah.
every new transformative technology that has been brought into place has had, well, has scared people. The implications of this, I would say, are vastly greater because of the ability for it to learn and make decisions instantaneously using all of the information that humanity has ever had.
Hmm.
So it's taken to the next level.
Yeah, yeah. So, uh, what else should we talk about?
Well, a couple of things that I wanted to touch on were the issues in cryptocurrency that need to be addressed. Because while the
Hmm.
technology has the potential, the keyword there being the potential to change the global economy, the social structures, the balance of inequality, all of that stuff. There are issues right now that we're facing that need to be addressed. The first one you already brought up, which is obviously scalability. That's the
Hmm.
first thing that needs to be solved for this to take a momentous step forward.
Yeah.
Another one that I'm finding, especially being a part of a number of these communities, is that there seems to be a fragmentation of these communities, which I mean is bound to happen. Look at politics. Good luck finding a consensus.
Hmm.
So whether it's Bitcoin forking 4 times into new things, it seems like the lack of consensus right now is something that worries me. And whether or not that's going to end up being a good or a bad thing in the long term, I mean, we could just create a number of more usable cryptocurrencies, like we were talking about before, that fill a specific niche better than one general one.
Hmm.
But it seems like one of the things that is one of the motivating factors of this fragmentation is the profit motive. I mean,
Yeah.
if I think you will agree with me on this one, Bitcoin Gold, one of I think it was the second or third hard fork that Bitcoin had.
Hmm.
It was done all for profit. Like
Yeah.
there was no bones made about it. People just wanted to make money off of that. And
Hmm.
well, I think there's nothing wrong with making money. Obviously, we're all trying to do that. Having that as the sole motivation for these technologies that have such broader uses, that's something that worries me, and I think will have to be addressed moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree, and I also find that too. A lot of people they get held up on just picking a few cryptocurrencies, and they always think like, oh, this is the one. Like this is going to be the one that goes to the
Yeah.
moon, and they seem to trash all the other projects. Well, they only support these
Yeah.
very few, and I always see this, and it to me in my head, I just kind of roll my eyes at that kind of stupidity, but
Uh-huh.
uh,
Well, it's like
I also do see that fragmentation. It's like kind of like gangs almost, and they're always kind of bashing the other people all the
exactly.
time. Yeah,
Yeah, you hit that nail on the head.
yeah, and I wonder like I wonder if that's good or bad. Because you could just say, oh, we should all come together and try and work on like one thing really, but maybe
Hmm.
it could be good in the long run because it kind of creates a little bit more competition between the developers.
I would say the competition aspect is good, and I mean, discourse is always a positive thing in no matter the area,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, I agree.
Discourse, I mean, argumentation, not so much, but discourse, the free flow of ideas and coming on to new perspectives and taking that on board. But
Hmm.
I don't see a lot of that taking that on board happening in cryptocurrency. I think well, discourse is always positive. Just trashing other coins because you want yours to moon it's very short-sighted and petty.
Mm-hmm.
None of these things are mutually exclusive, right?
Yeah.
They can all take off, and why don't we push towards the greater benefit of this industry right now? Let's at least wait until we have some usable projects in place at least before we start trashing each other. It's kind of to me it seems like it seems like a bunch of schoolyard bullshit that these
Yeah.
people are trying to trash other cryptocurrencies or other projects when both of them have equally as little to offer. They're all
Mm-hmm.
theoretical. So okay, you can throw stones at somebody else, but people who live in glass houses, right?
Yeah, and I also see a lot of manipulation in this market as well. Just especially in Twitter, and even just the manipulation in the buy and sell walls on these exchanges are pretty crazy.
Uh-huh. Well, with any new market, you're going to see manipulation, and well, until regulation catches up with that. So,
Yeah.
as a lot of people are saying, oh, having government regulation is terrible for cryptocurrency industry. And I would say possibly. Government regulation has been terrible in a lot of areas. Just look at cell phone contracts in Canada, something that we're both familiar with. It's
Mm-hmm.
infuriating. So that's an area where, okay, having intervention and regulation has hampered the industry. But with cryptocurrency, some regulation is going to be good for it. It's going to get rid of a lot of the scams and fraudulent activity that right now is so rife in the entire market.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say it doesn't have to be a government that's regulating it. The cryptocurrency industry as a whole can create a self-regulating body. Who's to
Mm-hmm.
say that doesn't happen,
Yeah, and
right?
there is a Waves. I know Waves platform is trying to do that. They're trying to create a self governing body for their ICOs on their platform. So we'll see whether or not that works. I believe they're using something called liquid democracy. Um, so yeah, well, it's going to come out in I don't think this year, but at least in 2019 they're going to start rolling this out, and so we'll see if we can self regulate, and if we can self regulate, then that means we can might be able to develop our own kind of governments and our own financial systems.
Definitely. There's a
Because
this
why do we need why do we need governments really? Like what are they used for? And I think this is one of the most important things with cryptocurrency is that we're going to start questioning what governments are.
well,
Like
definitely their
why do we
function.
need?
I think we're
Yeah,
seeing that today as
yeah,
well.
for
Um,
for sure. And so like the function of government, what I guess all it is, it takes money from its citizens and then distributes that more evenly into I guess uh, social programs like healthcare,
well, there's a number of
education,
things that
uh,
government.
military. Uh, I guess those are. But do we really need a government to divert those funds into those areas for us?
Well, it's
Or,
more than just funds as well. I
mm-hmm,
mean, the legitimacy of power, right? The
mm-hmm,
use of force. Who has the legitimate right to use that? That's another big thing. But we could go off for hours talking about the function of government and whether it is or is not needed. The
mm-hmm.
point being that cryptocurrency has the ability to disrupt that.
Yeah, for sure. And whatever kind of, however that it's taken on, we'll see what happens. I'm sure it's going to take some quick jabs in government and to make it more efficient,
Certainly,
to make it more efficient at least.
definitely. And if the fight back from the banking industry is going to be huge, the fight back from governments, that's on a whole nother level.
Yeah.
Um, it's going to be interesting to see where surveillance and censorship goes because we're already starting to see that ramp up. I mean, when I send you my version of this podcast, they're
Hmm.
probably gonna someone's gonna be looking at that, right? There's eyes on everything.
Yeah.
And even if we don't have the technology to go through all the data right now, all of this data is being put into libraries and logs on servers all around the world to later be gone through once the technology is there. So yeah, there's a lot of questions to still be answered with cryptocurrency and its relation to governments, financial industries, society. As we're saying, it's a disruptive technology for basically all aspects of our life.
And that's what's so crazy about this is that the internet just disrupted information, but crypto will disrupt everything.
Yeah, it has the potential to, definitely.
And that's
I
what
think,
and when people see that, that's when a flick goes in their head and they're like, oh, this is what you're talking about. You're not some crazy fucking nut. This can affect everything like that and like uh everything that we help
yeah,
me
every
out.
aspect of our lives
Yeah, every aspect of our
can be
life. Oh,
impacted by it.
yeah, yeah. It's remarkable.
One thing that we still, we being the crypto industry in general, are fighting an uphill battle on is legitimacy. I mean, with all of these entrenched organizations that have an interest to stop this spread, there's a lot of pushback. And
Mm-hmm.
whether that's in news media, which, as most people know, is run by a small group of players who also have entrenched financial interests in banks, hedge funds, financial institutions, let's call them.
Mm-hmm.
So there is going to be a lot of pushback, and there's going to be a lot of people trying to drag cryptocurrency through the mud.
Mm-hmm.
And you're seeing the start of that now. As the utility of cryptocurrency grows, we're going to see that growing in unison.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
One other thing I wanted to touch on, in terms of cryptocurrency or blockchain in general being used by the average person, is the ease of use and the
Yes.
user interfaces that are presented. Because
It-
right now, as you're talking about, this is the domain of the nerd. I mean, these are people who are inside their house for 20 hours a day, uh, rarely rarely showering,
You're talking about me
pouring
right now,
over.
aren't you? Never leaving me my
It was a thinly
This is
veiled
what happened
barb.
to me in 2017. Just to like let you guys know.
Uh,
I got into cryptocurrency in 2015. Like I didn't really get into it. I went to Coin Market Cap, which is one of the most kind of well-known cryptocurrency websites. Just kind of gives you a broad overview of the cryptocurrency market. And when I first looked at it in the summer of 2015, I thought it was kind of like I was like, what the fuck? What the hell is this? I had no idea. I was really skeptical. I didn't really, but I kind of thought about it for like since like September and then December, and then in December, I heard about the Ethereum ICO, and then uh, I was like, oh, I was so close to getting into it, but I was like a broke student, so I didn't really have enough funds to get into this ICO. But um, I, I saw it boom in January. I think it was February, I believe, January, February, and then I finally got some Ethereum for the first time, but Ethereum was already at $3 or $4. I wasn't able to pick it up at 50 cents or whatever the ICO. I think it was at 30 cents, I believe, and now it's at went over $1,000
yeah,
this
well,
year.
if you picked it up at
I
three or
know.
four
I would have
dollars
been a
and you held it
millionaire.
until now.
Yeah, it's so funny. But soon after that, I dropped out of school because this industry was too exciting. All I thought about was crypto and blockchain. I was just trying to learn everything I could. And then after that, I was doing exactly what Logan. I was a huge nerd. Never left like the basement I was living in. Didn't take shower. I lost 20 pounds like trying to research this shit. Like I was obsessed with it, and I still am obsessed. Like every day, I wake up excited to look at the market and even we both are Coin Prodigy and Crypto Chief. We're excited every day to look at this stuff because it's new and it's exciting.
Definitely. And
And
you have certainly earned your moniker as the crypto goblin.
for sure, yeah. But yeah, we
But
go on going.
going back to tangent aside, going back to what we were talking about, the user interfaces and the ease of use for the average person.
Mhm.
Once we have cryptocurrency interfaces that are as easy for people to use as going on their iPhone, downloading an app, and being able to use that app in a user-friendly manner, that's gonna, well, it's gonna add people to the cryptocurrency sphere, in leaps and bounds, because right
Mhm.
now it is still highly technical. I mean, even people
Yeah.
within the industry, some of them have a hard time, if not understanding, explaining the concepts and the technology that's underlying all of these.
Hmm.
So having that easily digestible to the average person, I mean, I'm still in the dark for a number of these things. It's so highly technical.
Hmm.
But I would say that shouldn't discourage people from getting into it. As
Yeah.
we continue on, it's going to become easier and easier to understand and easier to use as well, which I think is going to be one of the big issues that has to be overcome. For
Hmm.
instance, even buying something as easy as buying cryptocurrency, let's say Bitcoin, on an exchange,
Hmm.
that's still too technical for the majority of people to do,
Yeah.
unless you're
Even.
using Coinbase and want to pay astronomical fees. And that's kind of harkening back to the banking industry that we were trying to get rid of.
Yeah. And I also do agree with that. The ease of entrance is actually still pretty hard. Even my friends have difficulties, and they're pretty tech savvy.
And they're nerds too,
They're
yeah.
nerds too, yeah, and they have problems kind of grasping these concepts, and even like what is your public key, what is your private
Yeah.
key, uh,
Uh-huh.
even just sending
How
funds,
do
even
I
though
date women? Things like
yeah,
that.
yeah, how to date women, all those things, it is technical, and but the sooner you learn this stuff, um, pretty much the better it is because you'll have an upper hand compared to the people that are just coming into it.
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
But
So I
as far as the wider issues, I mean, we've covered all the major ones. Is there anything else that you can think of?
I think we covered quite a bit in this segment in our first podcast. I can't think of anything else. I think we should summarize summarize it from here.
Yeah. Well,
So
yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, so I guess like cryptocurrency is just all it is. It's a distributed global ledger that allows you to easily transfer uh, funds peer to peer, so one person to the next, very easily,
Funds and information.
and information as well. Yeah,
Hmm.
and uh, and this technology is brand new. It's just starting to grow. It's pretty much year one, even though it started in 2009. It's more or less like year one for this
Uh-huh.
industry. Right now, there's really not too many functional blockchains out there in terms of you can easily send funds to one another,
Hmm.
and but however the applications like casinos, decentralized Facebook networks, decentralized internet, decentralized Google networks, all those are still being developed right now. And even there's also something called decentralized exchanges as well, which is that in itself is revolutionary. So just a brief explanation of what a decentralized exchange is. It's so you have the New York Stock Exchange, and that's the centralized exchange. You have to go there. You have to trust people with your funds. But what a decentralized exchange is that it allows you to trade shares peer to peer. So I can trade.
No trusted third party involved.
Yeah, no third party trusted involved. So I just trade directly from person to person with almost no zero fees with these decentralized
Hmm.
exchanges. And yeah, so that's pretty revolutionary. So would you have anything to say on top of that?
Yeah, well, I would say, just kind of wrapping up here, there's obviously, as you've heard us talk about, there's huge potential for this. The key being potential. A lot of it is still theoretical, the majority of it, but the technology is moving in the right direction. It's moving fairly quickly as well. I mean, using that statistic you brought up before, from $18 billion to $800 billion in a year. I mean, that's pretty close to exponential growth. And if you look at
Mm-hmm.
the charts for the large cryptocurrencies from last year, that's basically what you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
So There are a number of obstacles that we covered that still need to be overcome before this market in general will take on more legitimacy and add users at a faster rate, as well as increasing the utility of all of these platforms. Uh, and yeah, we're still in the infancy, right?
Hmm.
We're taking baby steps right now,
Yeah.
but the potential for this technology is yeah, it's world changing,
Yeah, for sure. It's exciting to get in. So, if you guys
certainly.
enjoyed this podcast, just go to our website at www.globalcryptopix.com, and you can go there. You can look at our blog, go through our website, and if you have any other questions or anything you want to know about the crypto market, just send us the email, and we'll be more than happy to help you out.
Yeah, go on there and we have our email on there. If you have any questions or if there's anything that you want clarified, we're happy to respond to you. So
Cool. Well, yeah. Thank you very much for joining, and we hope to hear from you guys soon. Talk later. Peace out.
see y'all later.